Well, friends, greetings to you from IDCR, Institute of Dialogue with Cultures and Religions of Loyola College, Chennai. Today, we are going to dwell upon this particular theme of cherishing genuine joy as our birthright. Joy is our birthright. Genuine joy is our birthright. Right from our birth, from the womb to tomb, genuine joy is our birthright. But the $1,000,000 question is how to become a real religious of this particular genuine joy. Everyone cries for joy, justice, and peace and tranquility. But how to achieve it? There are 4 components with which we need to journey together. What are those 4 components? The ethics of egalitarianism, 1. Number 2, the aesthetics of integration. Number 3, inquiry with the scientific honesty. Number 4, involvement with the divine motherhood. Let me repeat. Ethics of egalitarianism, aesthetics of integration, and inquiry with the scientific honesty, and involvement with the divine motherhood. Let's dwell upon each and every component. Number 1, ethics of egalitarianism. We are craving for love, compassion, acceptance. But apparently, have we experienced the fear of genuine love and the fear of promoting genuine compassion? For example, I expect respect from others. But when the question of my duty for respecting others comes, there might be some difficulties in the name of caste, in the name of creed, in the name of culture, in the name of qualification, in the name of gender, and so on. Am I really at home with radical egalitarianism, radical equality? Finally, is there a mutual aspect of respect to every form of life? For example, we talk about the preferential love for the marginalized. The more affected you are, the more respectful you should become. But what happens actually? Higher the status, lower the punishment, and lower the status, higher the punishment. That seems to be the order of the day and the practical jurisprudence, though there is a sort of an Indian constitution prevailing in our culture. And salvation of all through the salvation of the least. Mahatma Gandhi used to say, Sarvodaya through Antyodaya. Progress of all is possible only through the progress of the least. But what happens? People with disabilities are very much gradually moved out of history, even kicked out of history with the spirit of exclusion. You don't have a buying capacity for education, you don't have a buying capacity of your health, then you should die, I should live. In other words, my dignity is built upon someone else's broken dignity. If that is the spirit, I permit people with disabilities to go ahead with extinction. I don't bother about their extinction. I don't bother about their death and destruction. And eliminating the evil is the prime necessity for all of us. Each one count any number of people as villains. In every movie, in every episode, in every house, we come across people have the deviant labeling of someone as the villains. But at the same time, there is a sort of necessity of creating myself as always justice oriented. The others are very much to be eliminated because they are unjust. You know, there is a tradition in our soil, in our cultural soil, in our Indian cultural soil. This particular tradition is called Matsya Nyaya, the jurisprudence of the fish. The big fish has the right to eat the small fish as a birthright. Otherwise, If the small fish is not available, how come the big fish would be able to survive? So this is Matsya Nyaya. The small fish has to be eaten by the big fish as a right. So this is very much writ large in everyone's age, in everyone's mind, in everyone's heart. So this particular Matsya Nyaya, the jurisprudence of the might is right, is expressed in terms of the evils like patriarchy, casteism, communalism, and corruption. What is after all corruption? Corruption is what I claim as a right which I don't deserve. I claim this as a right. So with all these things, there is one type of justice for me, another type of justice for others. I claim certain privilege-based ethics for myself and duty-based ethics to be imposed for others. Am I really at home with the ethics of egalitarianism? So this is the question to be asked. In the absence of this ethics of egalitarianism, neither the ruler nor the ruled, neither the so-called high nor the so-called low can really enjoy the genuine joy. The second component that I like to propose regarding the pursuit of the genuine joy is the aesthetics of integration. Am I really at home with myself, with my world, with my divine, with my surroundings, with my heart, with my entire vision of life? Everything has to be corrected at the level of cognition, affection, and performance. I might be good at talking about justice, but I may not be feeling justice for the others. I may be feeling good towards others with regard to sense of justice, but I may not be able to perform justice. For example, I might be a committed feminist with fiery talks on women's rights, but I'll be indulging in the wife beating. I may not be treating my housemaid with even the basic salary. So both at the level of cognition and affection, both at the level of affection and performance, the human rights has to be performed. That gives you certain sense of integration, which I call the aesthetics of integration. Suppose I am good with a human sensibility, but at the same time I'm misusing Mother Nature with rampant corruption, the rampant consumerism. I am not doing justice for the created beings. For example, I am good at human rights, but I am not able to keep up the good health, and so on. So on this count, one has to be very careful in analyzing oneself. I am a co-creator with the divine. The divine created the entire world with a sense of integrated creation. I am a co-creator with the divine. I am co-born with Mother Nature. There should not be any distanciation from one creature to another. For example, there is a distance of myself and the vegetation, distance of myself and the animal world, distance of myself and the cosmic world. If there is a distance, then there is a tendency to exploit. Unless or otherwise I own up that all the world of animals, all the world of nature, all the world of the vegetation, all the world of the heavenly bodies are mine, there is a less tendency of exploiting the Mother Nature. I am a co-born with nature. I am a co-laborer with other humans. The destiny is the same for us. The origin is the same for us. And all our aspirations are more or less intertwined with the same aspects of joys and sorrows. So I am a co-creator with the divine, co-born with nature, and co-laborers with other humans. And in the South Indian soil, we come across an integrated outlook. The entire world is very much perceived through this Kurinji, Mullai, Marudam, Neithal, Palai. There is a perfect unison between the humans and the nature and the divine and this particular humans. It is also to a certain spontaneous aspects of cosmotheandric vision. Cosmos means the created world. Theo means God, and Andros is human cosmotheocentric vision. So mountains, forests, agricultural land, seashore, wilderness, everything was there in unison with one another. So there is an aspect of relational anthropology to be very much insisted on. This relational anthropology, the relational anthropology enables us to realize, the flutter of a butterfly has a cosmic ramification. Unless or otherwise I realize this, I cannot appreciate the entire world as a network. If you are crying, I am also affected. If you are genuinely experiencing joy, I am also experiencing the genuine joy. This is relational anthropology. My dignity cannot be built upon your broken dignity. But unfortunately, evils like casteism, patriarchy, communalism, the culture of corruption is built upon this. My dignity, my welfare is depending on your broken dignity and the smashed well-being. Is there an aesthetic of integration? By way of my breathing, by way of my being, by way of my becoming, an integrated outlook rooted in this world. The third aspects of the genuine joy after ethics of egalitarianism and the aesthetics of integration is inquiry with a scientific honesty. Somehow, we are very much underscoring the significance of scientific honesty while dealing with others, while dealing with the materials. But while questioning one's own cultural prejudices, somehow we shy away from this inquiry with the scientific honesty. Always, I give an added political mileage for myself, my culture, my background, and my language, etc. As genuine inquiry with the scientific honesty has to be applied for dispelling the uncritical attachment to an ideology. I'm blind to a religion. I'm blind to a tradition. I'm blind to certain aspects which cannot be questioned at all. Somehow things ought to be questioned ruthlessly as an outsider, as an insider. And also the uncritical attachment to some traditions, some habits, some rhetoric, some habituated behavior. And also another area of inquiry with a scientific honesty to be applied even for rereading one's own scriptures. I might be a Christian. When I read the Bible, I like to reread the Bible from the scientific inquiry. If I am Muslim, I like to reread my Quran with a scientific inquiry also. If I am a Hindu, I have to reread all the scriptures with a scientific outlook. I simply cannot blindfolded in terms of the tall claims. Look here, now plastic surgery was there during those days, and we have got the aircrafts, well-equipped aircrafts in those days. Such a claims ought to be questions rather radical. Be it the story of creation, be it the story of the final eschatological events that are developing towards the end. Everything has to be reread from multiple interdisciplinary approach. And this is for inquiry with a scientific honesty. Fourthly, involvement with the divine motherhood. Genuine joy cannot be performed only at the affective level, at the cognitive level. It has to be in terms of action. A genuine joy has to be performed in and through compassionate actions. And it is here one has to perform not only justice, but compassionate justice. It has to be hyphenated always. There is a cry for justice, but in the name of justice, I can go ahead with the bloodshed. There is a cry for compassion, but in the name of compassion, I can be unjust and even canonize injustice also. So it has to be integrated as compassionate justice. Suppose my son is indulging in all sorts of negative actions against the rights of women, I need to question him. I need to question him with a sense of compassionate justice. I cannot canonize him just because he's my son. Compassionate justice and dynamic consolidation. What does it mean? In the name of tradition, in the name of history, in the name of my own unique scriptures and so on, I cannot simply fall back to them. I need to keep on evaluating myself, our actions, our way of proceeding, and ability to step up our new way of proceeding with a dynamic solidarity with others. Suppose my reading Bible doesn't help me to remove casteism. I like to start rereading the Bible in a different form. And this is what I mean by dynamic consolidation. It's not a claim that all the things that are there in my Hindu scripture, all the claims are there in my Quran, all things are there in the Bible, etc., etc. I need to keep up. I might be inadequate in certain aspects. It is here there is a need for a dialogue with other cultures, with other religions, with other traditions, and so on. And again, the action has to be very much accompanied with the emotions, affective dimension, and also with the critical questioning, critical historicity. And for example, we talk about development these days. What are the paradigms of the development? Sucking the water out and removing all the natural resources and coming with the smog of factories and coming with only computer, all the chips and all sorts of information technology alone is going to redeem me. This type of development projects are there. And this particular juncture, especially when the corona was affecting the entire globe as a pandemic, people came out just for buying materials for eating, not the luxury items. So at this particular juncture, what do you mean by development? Development of the person, development of the body, development of the soul, development of everything, and development at the integral level. A lopsided paradigm of development is not going to lead us anywhere. It has to be integral. Integral in the sense of doing justice to God, doing justice to the human, doing justice to nature. In other words, it's nothing but reconciliation with God, reconciliation with the humans, and reconciliation with Mother Nature, and reconciliation with all those people who have been denied justice. So that is integral development. So the whole question of integral development begins with the development of the least ones in a broken society with a conflict situation. With this motherly involvement, motherly affection, with the motherly sensibilities, we need to integrate all the people with a sense of integral development, with a sense of deep sense of dialogical inclusion of all the sectors. This is what I mean by involvement with the divine motherhood. Here, we need to qualitatively have the intervention as well as quantitatively have the intervention for developing the entire history. It's not enough to say quality is enough for me. Some would say quantity is enough for me. So we need to aspire for, while talking about the integral development, it has to be qualitatively quantitative and quantitatively qualitative. So involvement with the divine motherhood. I cannot leave a single soul to be destroyed for the sake of many. And the single soul cannot be developed by way of destroying many. So individual self is also to be protected, and the entire society has to be also protected. This is the motherly sensibility. A mother cannot sacrifice a child for the sake of the welfare of the family. No. The individual cannot be sacrificed for many, and the many cannot be sacrificed for the individual. So this is how the involvement with the divine motherly sensibility is to be executed. Finally, dear friends, we need to have the spirituality of struggle for acquiring the genuine joy. This would be our concluding remarks. And what are the components for the spirituality of struggle? Number one, discerning. Discerning from within, discerning from outside. What about the origin of my thoughts? What are the modus operandi of my thoughts into ideologies? How these ideologies are performed into actions? At every moment, I have to critically analyze. Not merely from the eyes of my own self, but also from the eyes of the others. And this is where we need to have the sense of critical historicity. Critical historicity for the sake of many, for the welfare of many. Normally they call it a common good. So the common good as the criterion for discerning each and every of my thought, my feelings, as well as my actions. And salvation after all is appropriate intervention at the appropriate moment with appropriate intensity, with appropriate attitude. And this salvation, you might have another label for salvation, development. Whether it is appropriate for the welfare of all, especially the least, those who have been defeated in every conflict situation, their welfare has to be very much included. So the salvation of all is possible only through the salvation of the least. And another element of the spirituality struggle is such a need for developing the fine art of self-critique. This is the most difficult task. Every religion talks about that. But the question of performing the fine art of critiquing the self. The critiquing my own self, not only my own self, but also critiquing my own presupposition of my native soil. I happen to be Indian, and suppose I canonize everything as an Indian, as if we are incorrigible, as if we are infallible. No, I need to critique my own presuppositions. Suppose there are certain evils in my native soil, like casteism, like the discriminatory hierarchy. I need to question that. If I got a certain cultural prejudices against a people, a group of people, or there is an ethnocentric attitude, I need to pull it out and identify this is the evil for me, I like to remove it. The necessity for the growth in the fine art of self-critique, which is daring to critique my own native soil as well, cultural presuppositions and psychological prejudices as well. And somehow there is a celebration to be here and now. The materiality here and now is the site of salvation. Somehow religion plays such a dubious role. On the one hand, they're talking about the reality here and now, but quite often they take a flight to the otherworldly attitude, heaven or hell or whatnot and so on. Every way, the religion has to be corrected from the point of view of here and now, by way of rereading the past and healthily projecting the future while critically watching over the present as it is unveiling itself. This is the moment of celebration and collective celebration and integral celebration. And at this particular juncture, we need to have the genuine joy as a birthright. How to achieve that? By way of integrating all these four dimensions: the ethics of egalitarianism, the aesthetics of integration, and inquiry with a scientific honesty, and involvement with the divine motherhood. Thank you so much. All the best.